Watching TV has changed over time. Streaming has become the new norm. That's why Golden State Media Concepts television podcast dives headfirst to the world of cord cutting. Want to be on the loop of what's hot in Netflix? Or if it's not a preference, what about original shows in Hulu? We've got you covered. Join us as we fill in the blank and talk about movies to stream and what show you should be binging. This is the Golden State Media Concepts television podcast.
Thank you for tuning into the GSMC TV show podcast brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network Group. I'm your host, Priscilla Welch. Welcome to another Thursday night. In our world, we have many ways of manipulating the mind. We love traveling, we love eating, especially for all you cooks and your moms and your dads out there. And I would like to discuss today how basically bringing TV, food, and traveling can educate our minds and be very entertaining, especially learning different ways of cooking and learning different recipes for desserts and many different types of foods for like lunch and dinner, especially healthy foods. But have you noticed, because of our culture differences and because of what media portrays, we sometimes have a way of judging another culture or how they eat and what they eat. And I find it's very interesting how like there's many shows out there now, even on YouTube, where people are actually going about traveling and trying all these different foods, and they're being very open-minded. They're not judging on the culture. They're not judging if maybe it's a type of bug that they eat or if it's a type of animal. And you have to think about it. When other countries look at us, and when I say us, I mean America, do they judge us for certain cultural differences that we have? Or do they just say, well, you know, that's their culture, this is my culture, there's no need for judgment? And I feel like this is something, even through food, just like how music makes the world go round and round, food can also do the same, because especially if you love to eat. Now, me, I love to eat, okay? And I love trying different new things and new food. So I feel like this episode is for all of you out there who love to try different recipes, try different foods, and really just love to travel and try different cultural differences and learn about different cultures. So, of course, there are many shows, like I said, where people would travel and try new things. So here are some of the ones that I have watched. And it is called, for the first one, Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives. And then we all know that's a very popular show that you can watch on Hulu and Food Network. And then if you stay tuned for the rest of the podcast, we'll get into a show on Netflix that is called Somebody Feed Phil. And I feel like that's another interesting TV show that a lot of people would go ahead and watch, especially on Netflix, one of the hugest platforms that we have today when it comes to streaming, especially because a lot of people do not have, again, cable. So these are some other ways that you can watch those TV shows that have to do with like food or traveling, because a very common channel network would be the Food Network. So I just want to dive into that today. So stay tuned. So of course I want to start off with, like I said earlier, diners, drive-ins, and dives. So we all know who Guy Fieri is. I mean, he has restaurants literally all over the country. But he of course has more than one TV show. But one of his most popular TV shows are Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives. And what I like about this TV show is he's literally going to all these different diners, all these different drive-ins and drive-thrus and dives where he can literally test the food out and literally eat all day. It makes you want to have his job. And I used to love watching it on the Food Network, and you start seeing all these different recipes and different things that people are starting to do different in their restaurants. And sometimes he gives like recommendations, or he suggests like, oh, well, do you eat it this way or do you that way? Like, he asks a lot of questions. He's very curious. Now, of course, it's not an international show, but it is like all over again, like America. So the way Guy Fieri first, he actually is a future colorful culinary personality, okay? Like, I've seen him with so many different hairstyles and hair colors, for example. So he actually opened up his first food business back in like the age of 10, and he was already operating his own like pretzel cart. So like, this is a person that you would go to who literally has been loving food and trying to do different things with food and everything like that from since a young age. Like, this is his passion, this is what he wants to do. And like, after college, he actually worked as a restaurant manager. And then he worked his way up and ended up becoming a restaurant partner. And then later on, finally in 2006, which is actually the air date for Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives. And this is where he actually started off with this particular show. And that's how many years this show has been out, from since 2006. We're now in 2020. Do the math. It's crazy. So, and of course, he's like one of the biggest stars on the Food Network, because every time you put the Food Network, you have to hear about Guy Fieri. Now, where I live out in the Poconos, I don't know about the rest of you that are listening out there, but where I live, there's actually a few restaurants. There's one not far away from me, actually, at the Mount Airy Casino. And Guy Fieri's restaurant, like, they would call it Guy Fieri's Kitchen. And so it's very interesting to see how he maybe have visited these places, or he may have opened up these restaurants because he loves good food. He loves the quality of good food. I mean, how many of you can actually say, like, when you go to a restaurant, and I know it's harder these days because we're living through a pandemic, but you actually go to a restaurant and actually enjoy the food. You actually enjoy the texture. You enjoy the seasoning. You enjoy the wait staff, the waitresses and the waiters, the bartenders. I mean, what I see on TV, of course, could be different to what we see obviously in real life when we go to a restaurant. But there's only maybe a handful of restaurants I could say, oh my God, like, I have to go back there. Whereas there's other cases where there's a restaurant, depending on the time that you go, well, the service sometimes is not always that good, depending on where you go, of course. Sometimes it gets busy. Wait staff could start forgetting your orders. I already had instances like that happen too many times, even at like fancier restaurants. And it's annoying because you're already paying a certain amount of money to eat the smallest amount of food, okay? Tell me you don't know what I'm talking about. I mean, come on, fill my plate up or something. But at the same time, I'm trying to watch my weight and my diet, of course. So, hey, so the early years of Guy Ramsey Fieri, he actually was born January 22nd, 1968. But then, of course, he later changed his name to Fieri. And then he actually grew up in Ferndale, California. And then he, like I said, he developed a passion for food, entrepreneurship. And then later on, his father built a special pretzel cart when he was 10 years old. And that's where he started his business. And it's amazing to hear stories like this. Like, you can literally start at any age you want, as long as you have the passion for it and you know what you want to do. And he actually did, like, help. So, for example, Fieri, he actually earned money, from selling the pretzels. That way he could fund the adventure of a lifetime. And then at the age of 16, he actually spent a year studying in France. And then he continued his culinary education. So the simple fact that he even has the experience in a different country, I mean, completely different continent for where we are right now in America, is just also amazing, because not a lot of people can say that. Maybe they went to culinary school, yeah, but they probably did something local from where they're in their state, or local from nearby city, whatever it is. That's just a little bit, of course, about one of the best culinary people of all time. But the actual show itself has actually a total number of 31 seasons. Again, it is based in the United States. It's on the food reality television genre. And usually the show would obviously run like under a half hour, depending on commercial time. The production company is Page Productions. They actually were the production company from 2007 to 2011. But then Citizen Pictures took over from 2011, and right now they're currently doing it still. And like I said, you can watch this on the Food Network, and I believe you can also watch this on Hulu. So again, if you're one of those audiences, members out there that doesn't use cable television anymore, you can obviously stream it on Hulu, okay? The entire premise, like as I said, like each episode, he goes out there, he does this thing where he'll taste seafood, chicken, ribs, burgers, whatever it is, and he'll go to these restaurants and watch, like, he'll literally go in the kitchen, if you've seen the episode, or have not, and he'll watch how they prepare their food, how they season it, what they do to it, so that way they can get that good texture out of it. And then we see how he tastes it and everything, and how other people in the restaurant at the time who are there when they're filming, how they feel about it, what's their review, what's their opinion, and it kind of just gives this whole general layout of each restaurant that he visits, which is pretty cool. And we just get a sample of literally everything. So of course, when he's traveling all over state, it's pretty amazing. And of course, it's a lot of comfort foods, because like I said, this is diners, drive-ins, and dives. So we're going to get a lot of fast food here. Of course, it's going to be barbecue, smoked meat, hamburgers, deep fried food, pizza, steak, bacon, egg, breakfast. Of course, regional and a lot of ethnic specialties as well, because of course, everyone is foreign. And when I say foreign, like everyone always has some type of multicultural mix of a cultural background. And that's what's really important, especially when it comes to food. With this saying now, this is just making me hungry. This show has been on obviously for so many years, and I feel like, in my opinion, this show is amazing because, like I said, you can actually get different recipes of how to cook the food and everything. Of course, if you don't agree with the comfort foods that are being cooked, at least on the show, well, you don't have to watch it, but it's pretty entertaining to watch. I mean, to see how things are when restaurants try to get a good review, or how things are prepared in the kitchen, so that when like, hey, when I go to that state or when I go to that city, I can visit that restaurant because Guy Fieri was there and he gave one of the best reviews for it. So that's another option. Now, for those of you who don't like to travel, well, this is just something entertaining that you could watch at home. And what is so interesting about it, as I said, is how they prepare the food when the customers are actually giving the good reviews, because sometimes you're not always going to get a good customer. And what I find pretty interesting is a pattern so far on this show where majority of the time they do get good customers where they're like, this is amazing. Now, I don't know if it's because they know they're on TV, so they're not trying to seem rude or whatever it is, but it's pretty interesting how they do that. And you have to be open-minded, and especially in general, which I will get into more later on today on our show, but you have to be really open-minded when you see other cultural backgrounds and how they prepare their food, how they cook it, and what exactly they eat, because it doesn't make sense to judge. It's food. If that's what they eat, that's what they eat. Who are you to tell them not to eat that bug or whatever it is? Everyone has different backgrounds. Everyone has different cultures. And what's interesting with this show is there were many guest appearances over the years. So I'll just name a few here. We have Robert Irvine, Andrew Zimmern, Michael Simon, Emeril Lagasse, Jeffrey Zakarian, as well as celebrities, which of course you guys all want to hear about. Matthew, Gene Hackman, Rosie O'Donnell, Joe Theismann, Kid Rock, Chris Rock, Adam Sandler, Kevin James, Clint Bauer, Gene Simmons, Steve Harwell of Smash Mouth, E40 the rapper, and Mick Fleetwood. So those are all the celebrity guests that actually appeared on the show. And then, of course, everyone before that were like fellow chefs of Guy Fieri. So it's also cool when those episodes occur because we get to see how both chefs react to the different reviews in the restaurants and their different opinions, because a lot of times when it comes to chefs may cook very similar and they may have the same opinion about different foods and how it should be prepared. But at the same time, chefs are completely different, in my opinion, because when someone cooks something a certain way, like say for your mom's house, everyone always talks about how one of their parents at least is a good cook in their family, right? But your mother and your father is not going to cook the same as maybe your aunt and your uncle or your cousin. Am I right? It's different. Everyone is pretty much good at something. Maybe this one will be good at the macaroni. Maybe this one will be good at the salmon. So what I like is the chefs kind of do that as well, especially on the show. And that's what keeps it more entertaining, more interesting. And again, you can watch this on the Food Network. And right now, they are currently on season 32, the recent episode that will be coming out on November 13th, and it's called Chicken and Briskets. And that will be at 9 p.m. So usually look out for that. And it's usually every Friday nights that it will come out. And you can actually watch it other than the Food Network. You can watch it on YouTube TV if you have a subscription, Sling TV, Fubo TV, Philo, and Amazon Prime if you want to spend that money. So coming up next after the break, we're going to get into the best food reviews, and this is actually one of my favorite Food Network type of shows, but it's specifically on YouTube. I don't think he even shows it on Food Network, which is so cool about it, because it's kind of streaming, but at the same time it's like really, really good. So don't go anywhere. You don't want to miss it. Coming up after the break.
Want to know the latest and hottest music hitting the airwaves? Don't be left out. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Music Podcast. Keith keeps you on the loop with everything you need to know from pop, rock, hip-hop, and the top 40. And we'll throw in news of your favorite artists, concert and tour dates, and so much more. Listen no further, because this is the gold standard in music podcast.
Welcome back from the break, everyone. So if you're now tuning in, we just finished discussing diners, drive-ins, and dives. And again, today is literally all about food and the Food Network and whatever other shows that specifically have to do with food and traveling. And of course, we just finished talking about Guy Fieri's TV show on the Food Network that's been on for years, since 2006. And again, you can watch it on the Food Network as well as Philo, Pluto TV, Fubo TV. There's many options. So coming up next, like I was talking about before the commercial, is one interesting show is actually called Best Food Reviews. And I like this show because it's not a specific network, but he actually streams it on YouTube. So especially if you're a YouTuber and if you love watching YouTube videos and you're obsessed, and if you love food and if you love traveling, well, this is definitely a show that you can watch. Now, it's been going on for quite a few years, and just a little bit history about it. So basically, best ever food review, he actually goes around literally all over the world to just try so many different things. I mean, even parts of the world that you probably never even heard of, to visit tribes, whatever it is. And what I like about him compared to Guy Fieri is he goes that extra 10 steps to literally have us see the entire environment online, to see the country, to see literally how they prepare this food. So we're not talking about classical, traditional, fancy restaurants or just simple like diners and drive-ins. We're talking about literally, hey, if I want to go to this part of Australia and, well, they're preparing their food outdoors, or if I want to go to New Zealand or some part on the beautiful continent of Africa. Well, the way he does this is just amazing, because he will literally sit there and eat like how they eat. So if they're eating with their hands, he's eating with their hands. If they're eating with chopsticks, he's eating with chopsticks. And I love it because this is a perfect example of what I'm talking about when it comes to being open-minded, non-judgmental, being open to other cultures, because that is very important, especially these days. I feel like more and more people need to take more advantage of it. Whatever your religious beliefs are, whatever non-religious beliefs you have, however you feel about food, about traveling, about any culture, it is good to learn about what is in the world around you and not just being stuck in one place. It doesn't make sense. So, with that being said, now he has a team of literally hungry storytellers, specifically him in my opinion, because sometimes he will team up with other people that are like on YouTube, or they'll share and promote him and he'll share and promote them and they'll eat together. But most of the time it's him. And he hunts down literally the most unique cuisine from like all around the world, encouraging empathy, understanding, and appreciation of different cultures through their food. And you can find out this review on www.besteverfoodreviewsshow.com, okay, where I get some of my information for this particular show. As of right now, their fans alone are 4.1 million subscribers on YouTube. Just 4.1 million subscribers on YouTube. And 761K fans on Facebook, 170K fans on Instagram. That is how popular this show is. And as you go on this website, because like I said, it's not a particular channel network that he has on TV. So he will show you like different videos, like Asian ice cream, or like different samples of recipes that he's tried before when he visited that country. And then they even have merch. So if you wanted to buy a shirt or hoodie or sweater or anything like that, you can also go on their website. And I believe they also they have like ways where you can actually continue and support the show. Again, since I said it's not being paid by really bigger ads like how Guy Fieri's show is. So it's all through support and investment. And there's also options too if you want to work with them on the website. And again, you can follow them on Instagram. So all their different adventures that they've done. Now, to get into more of the show, it started actually back in 2010. And again, it's not one of those regular TV shows that you would see on a channel network, but they do occupy the Travel Channel. And again, you can watch all his videos on YouTube. He explains everything under the videos by like the country that he goes in, or what is the best countries that he visited for like the different foods that he's eaten. And again, he teams up with people as well. And as you go into the show, he does basically a lot of different reactions to and reviews to what that country was like, what that food presence was like, how did they cook the food. And what I like about the show is when he goes to these different countries, it's not just about the food. He actually educates us a little bit about how that country operates. So if this part of the country, for example, may not be a safe place to walk, or someone local, what I like is someone local will sometimes be with him on the episode to demonstrate and show him where exactly is the best place to eat. I remember one episode where they were actually grilling, like you would think here in America would be very unsanitary, but that's how they would cook it in that country. I don't remember the country it was. However, it was grilling like on the side of the road. And I think one of the locals was explaining to him that when they grill, now sometimes there would be certain like gangs in the area because of the way the country and the neighborhood is. And again, this is not all of the country. Now, we all know that different countries have different issues. So they were just explaining to him, the locals, that sometimes the people that cook the food, or the people that are the hosts, or if they're the owners, that they sometimes have to give the food away for like free to like whoever is in charge of that gang, for example, or in charge of that leadership in that community, that allows them to continue to present their food or to sell their food while people walk by or drive by in that part of the country only. So I found that very interesting because it is educating you as to what to do and what not to do when you step foot into that country. And to me, that's a very cultural importance, because now, as you all know, some of you may know, what I study, for example, we study communications. That is my major. So studying communications has really opened a light to, especially anything when you're visiting another country. Like, it's pretty polite to try to adjust or to try and learn how that country operates, how the women are, how the men are, because you can't take your ignorance and your arrogance of how you do things in your own country and expect to do it there the same way in someone else's country. It's just common sense, people. And I feel like Americans and many other countries sometimes, not many other, but specifically, I'm just going to say Americans, have a very bad habit of doing that, don't we? Yes, we do. Admit it. So a lot of you may hate me right now, but hey, I speak facts. So this is what it all is, and this is what it is with GSMC, okay? And so again, it's going back to, if you need different types of ways that you, okay, say for example, your family may come from and maybe immigrants, or maybe you wanted to find some way to get closer to your parents' homeland. So for example, my parents are from the Caribbean. And I think it's interesting when he goes to Caribbean countries, because I can kind of see a closer look to maybe certain things that are done a certain way that maybe I don't know all about, that maybe my parents forgot to tell me about, or it's just something that's never really discussed anymore because we're no longer in that time to prepare things that way, or everything that we do now is more Americanized. It's not like we go back to their home country and continue to cook that same way or do things that same way. Everything is Americanized now because it's been here for so many years. So the show doesn't really go off of seasons as, like, for example, Guy Fieri's show was, but it's more like how YouTube is with every show. So if you continue with your fan base, if you continue your subscriptions and everything, of course, everything is going to go by the year and the month that was posted. And he has, like, for example, a bunch of different videos, like maybe for just this one country or different country, and that's kind of like how you could follow. Of course, if you subscribe, it'll be easier because then you can kind of get like notifications of whenever there's a new post. So that's what I'll highly recommend if you do plan to watch this on YouTube. And again, we need this show because it can open your eyes. It can make you more open-minded to different cultures, different food. For some reason, the media in this country has a way of manipulating our minds so much that when we see, for example, another country cooking a type of animal that maybe we don't eat, particularly in America, of course, we are automatically against. Our brain is just like, ew, disgusting, that's bad. You know, I remember there was this post one time where I believe the actress Angelina Jolie had actually visited one of these countries that I just don't remember, but she was eating some type of cricket or some type of bug, and the comments that people would say, it was just like, ew, that's disgusting, like, what are you doing? Okay, take Fear Factor, for example. I know many of you watch Fear Factor. There were certain things in there that people ate that you're like, I don't think you should be eating that. But they felt like, okay, well, this is the amount of money I'll be getting if I finish the mission and finish the job. So they're going to continue eating anyway. That's what's interesting. So, and it goes back to just adjusting to what other cultures do and being open-minded. That is the really important thing. And of course, for all you moms and dads out there, or just guardians or sisters, brothers, cousins, uncles, aunts, whatever you are, friend, it's okay. Couples, hey, if you want to spice it up a little bit and get some like new recipes out there for dinner, you're running out of things to like figure out how to cook this or how to cook that, I feel like these shows are really great options of how you can cook certain things. Of course, depending on the country, you may not get everything in America or certain parts of America. For example, like maybe like New York, you would probably get like a lot of Caribbean spices and stuff like that. But it's kind of hard, especially where I'm at. I don't know about all of you out there in the audience, but if you don't really have a Goya aisle, you're really not going to get anything close to what you want for when it comes to spice. So that's the unfortunate side to it. So again, you can watch this show on YouTube, okay? And the gentleman's name actually for this YouTube channel, his name is, again, I'm reading this off of the website that you can go to, the besteverfoodreviewshow.com. So the creator is actually Sunny, and he's well known in media and food personality in the film industry. So he was actually born and raised in Minnesota, USA, and he found his passion for filmmaking while he was traveling and living in Asia. And then he began what we now know as the Best Food Ever Review Show. So since his breakout, he has worked with popular channels such as the Travel Channel, and he has collaborated with a few other big names in the film industry. And then, of course, he has a specific team. So the Best Ever Food Review Show is a team of 10 highly skilled individuals handling all aspects from research to shooting and post-production. We are a one-stop production house. And their mission is, we're hungry storytellers on a mission to hunt down, document the most unique cuisine from around the world, encouraging empathy, understanding, and appreciation of different cultures through their food. And then, of course, it just goes on in detail of where they are on social media websites and where you can follow them and where you can watch the actual videos. Again, it is not on cable TV and it's not on a streaming service, but YouTube. That is the best way to watch it. And again, if you subscribe, you'll get those new episodes. So usually I would say about once a week, check in to see when those episodes come in, even if you don't want to like subscribe or anything. But the way we would usually watch it is like we would watch like maybe the recent episodes and just like research them on YouTube. And that's what I kind of did. So that's what I highly recommend. So again, thank you so much. We're halfway through the show now, guys. Later on, we're going to be talking about the Food Paradise. This is another TV show that you can actually watch on the Food Network. And coming up after that, Somebody Feed Phil. This is another TV show in regards to food and traveling, and is actually on Netflix. So it's actually on a streaming site. So don't go anywhere. You don't want to miss it.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back from the break, everyone. So if you're now tuning in with us, we just finished discussing about the TV show on YouTube called Best Food Reviews. Again, that's by the host Sunny, and he has an elaborate team, about 10 or so people, that literally spends their time uploading all these different episodes on their YouTube channel, of course collaborating with Travel Channel. And yeah, like, it's a really good show. I highly recommend it. So now we're going to get into our third topic of today, and it is called Food Paradise. And you can actually watch Food Paradise on the Food Network. And this TV show actually has 19 seasons, okay? So it actually is a little bit shorter than the Guy Fieri TV show and the show that we were just talking about, which is called Best Food Reviews. So yes, so Food Paradise. So of course, like, when you think of the title Food Paradise, obviously it's a paradise to even just be around food sometimes, especially really delicious food. And with Food Paradise, it literally has all different types of food. So it's talking about desserts, it's talking about dinner, it's talking about lunch. So we're going to get into it. So again, it has 19 seasons. Of course, it's the country of origin. Again, it's the United States. And it is actually narrated. So this is a different type of show, like a different type of genre. It's still food reality, but the way that it is portrayed, at least on the show, it doesn't really have a host per se. It's more just like narrating what the different foods are and what they're describing in that episode on that day. So it actually was narrated from 2008 to 2013 by Mason Petit. And then in 2014, and now the current president is narrated by Jesse Blaze Snyder. So it features literally the best places to find all types of like food all across America. So this is something that doesn't do, of course, like internationally, like the previous show we were talking about. But it originally, again, this is another TV show that actually worked with Travel Channel, and then beginning in 2020 of this year, the Food Network actually just began airing the episodes. So, of course, it was Travel Channel before, and now it's on Food Networks. Like I said, you could go watch it over there. And then we have some of the production companies: Prometheus Entertainment, O'Malley Productions, and IW Productions. And the original release date, actually, of this TV show is December 17, 2007. So, basically, the way the focus of the show will go is each episode, like I said, focuses on a certain type of restaurants, such as diners, bars, drive-thrus, or breakfast places that people go to find like a certain type of food that they want. And each episode, of course, is listed. So like from season 1 alone was only like from 2007 2008. Then they moved on to season 2, that was in 2010, season 3 2011, season 4 2012 to 2013. So sometimes it depends, like every couple years or so, like one season will go as far as into the following year, but then sometimes they can wrap it up within just the 1 year alone. Like, for example, just 2017, they just had season 11. And right now, the recent episode, like I said, that's out right now, is actually season 19. So there's also some special episodes that they have, a couple of special episodes that you can actually watch if you don't want to watch like the full show. It's called the when they went to the restaurant called Colorado State Fair, and that location was in Pueblo, Colorado. Another one is when they went to the Minnesota State Fair, and that was in St. Paul, Minnesota. The next one is Wisconsin State Fair, and they went to Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and Arizona State Fair, Phoenix, Arizona. Iowa State Fair, Des Moines, Iowa. The Texas State Fair, and there's also a food paradise, but London, and that was put out in 2012. And they visited a few restaurants, of course, in London as well, and especially like a lot of like high-end, like popular restaurants. So now we're going to go and dive in a little bit more into this show. And for those of you who don't really like traveling like out of country, well, this is the show for you if you want to travel at least across the United States. And the thing with Food Paradise, what they do different, as I stated before, is it has narrators that actually just narrate each restaurant that they go and visit, or each place that they watch how the food is prepared. They watch how the food is, given to the guests. And a lot of people sometimes when they travel, they really just want to eat. Some people, will go and visit like the regular, tourist attractions and everything like that. But then you have those of us who actually just want some food, right? And you can't go wrong with food. You always need some type of sustenance. So I'm just going to read a little bit here, and it's from the www.travelchannel.com. As I stated before, this is where the show used to be on only, but now the Food Network is airing it. So here we go. And I quote, "Since fantastic food can be important to many travelers than museums, hotels, or souvenirs, we've compiled all the must-see food spots, must-see people, must-see, across the country that offer unique dining experiences. We're serving up hefty plates of the country's tastiest, most mouth-watering, and delicate meals. We're taking lip-smacking pizza, tasty deli entrees, boatloads of bacon, fresh seafood, finger-licking deep-fried dishes, and that's only the beginning. So, bring your appetite and your stretchy pants as we dive into a healthy portion of Food Paradise." Now, here's what's interesting when you read that. Healthy portion. First of all, we all know when you're trying to eat fast food and all that stuff, like it's something that you can crave or something you just want a quick bite to eat. Okay. And majority of like a lot of the food that is going to be presented on Food Paradise when you watch it is also a lot of fast food. So I just find that interesting, the language that they use to bring you to the website or to bring you to their show to watch is healthy portion. So it's very interesting because a lot of people usually don't care, what they eat. I mean, lately, because of the obesity rates, especially in the United States of America, there are children as young as 13 and way younger that have to worry about obesity. So, and it's not okay, of course. I mean, other countries, of course, have more stricter, I feel, rules when it comes to what they use for their food and what causes the weight gain. And they probably don't really eat out as much Americans do. I mean, that's kind of like a common thing, especially if you're in college. So there's like less cooked meals, if that makes sense. I mean, of course, there's a bunch of you out there that still do home cooked meals, especially now because of the pandemic, and prefer not to go out to eat. But there's those of certain other people that just really don't have the time to have a home cooked meal. They probably live alone. They're always on and about. They have to do this, they have to do that, they have to do this, they have to do that. Like, it's back and forth. So that's why I feel like this is actually more of a accurate show that you would watch. If you are in college, or if you, let's say, love to travel across country, or if you have a job that allows you to travel, and you travel like basically all the time, and at the same time though, you're not just trying to stuff anything that you see and just eat it right away. I mean, of course, all of us have certain spots that probably we go to eat what we want to eat, especially for dinner, and then we don't have time to cook. So what I'm saying is Food Paradise is that TV show that for those of us that do travel, for those of us that are always on the move, at least you can get some type of healthy version to what you're craving or what you need for sustenance, And I feel like there's not a lot of Food Network shows that do that. So, of course, what we noticed so far, every TV show that I've talked about in relation to food and traveling is a little different. So, because Guy Fieri's Kitchen, his show, and as I stated before, like his show is literally the drive-throughs, the diners, and the dives. And now with this show, Food Paradise, it's kind of doing a little bit of that, but at the same time, it's kind of trying to reach also like breakfast and so many other things, type of restaurant. As long as there's restaurants, that's where they're going. And it makes sense because then it's not just, okay, well, we don't have to worry about that's too greasy, that's too fatty. So that's why it is a very interesting use of language, I feel, when they talk about the show. So again, you can follow more about this on their website, and they usually have like certain blogs and everything that they use for the show to just bring more people to the Travel Channel. But as I said, you can go on the Food Network right away and just watch it. And here are some highlights about the show. So there is a Food Paradise, with the origin in the U.S., but then they also have a Food Paradise International. And that actually, the original network, right now they only have about a couple seasons, of course, but the original network is still Travel Channel for that. So there is a little bit of a difference. But as I stated, like, they just don't do restaurants, they also do bars. So basically any place that you could think of that has food. But I feel like it's more interesting, and I probably would recommend watching the international one because it's just going back to that other TV show that Sunny hosts for the best food reviews. And when you watch like something that has like all the country, like at least majority of the countries like involved, I feel like it kind of educates you more. But even the one for the United States works too, like Food Paradise, because again, when you're traveling now to Ocean City, Maryland, or Ocean City, New Jersey, or someplace in Florida, someplace in New York, Texas, Alabama, Maryland, any one of those places, Massachusetts, so you can kind of watch this as a guide to, okay, well, our first stop is going to be at so-and-so, and then maybe even do your own review, or even just watch to see like how they do things at that restaurant. Of course, keep in mind though, this is TV. So certain things that they probably do on TV, they may not do when you get to the restaurant. You would hope though, you would think, but you can only know it once you go there for yourself and experience the food and experience the wait staff and how everything works. So again, thank you so much. We're finally going to get into our final part of the episode today. Thank you so much again for listening. And it is called Somebody Feed Phil. And I'm really excited to talk about this show because it's kind of a more interpersonal, and the show is on Netflix. So coming up after the break, you don't want to miss it. Stay tuned.
Want to find out what movies to go see? Then check out the GSMC Movie Podcast. It's your ticket to the latest movies, whether it's a new blockbuster event, romantic, comedy, or action flick. This show has got it all covered. They talk some what to go see now. Don't bother. What's hot on Netflix and everything in between. That's GSMCpodcast.com/movie-podcast. When it's all about the movies, it has to be this new show. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back from the break, everyone. So again, I hope you really enjoyed today's episode. I hope you loved food. I hope you loved travel as much as I do. Honestly, this next person that I'm going to talk about in this next TV show called Somebody Feed Phil, which is on Netflix. It used to be on PBS. As far as I can say, is just, I would love to do this someday. I don't know about how many of you, but I actually love traveling and I love food. So to put those two together would just be the dream for me, if I can do that realistically. But of course, coming back to the real world, I mean, it's possible, don't get me wrong, but I just don't see myself traveling the whole time and then also eating the whole time. I mean, like I said, I'm still trying to lose that weight, you feel me? But anyway, just some humor for you all. So Somebody Feed Phil. So it recently just came out with its recent episode out on Netflix right now. So it actually first premiered January 12th, 2018. And it actually, like I said, premiered on Netflix. And it's a travel documentary. So it's a little different from the other shows that we discussed. I mean, like I said, so far, all these TV shows that we're talking about have their little differences and similarities to them. Of course, everything is food and travel, but some of them go more in detail. Some of them are international. Some of them are just staying in the United States. And then some are filmed also very differently. So sometimes you can have like just a one-man camera. You can have a whole film crew. And now we have a documentary. So each episode follows basically this man named Rosenthal. And he's basically touring like the cuisine of the episodes, like featured cities. So like whatever city that he goes ahead and visits, just like our other host that we were talking about, he obviously is talking about food. And apparently this show, he actually had a previous show that was on PBS actually, and it was called I'll Have What Phil's Having. So this is not his first time doing something like this when it comes to food and traveling. And then in May 2019 for Netflix, it renewed actually Somebody Feed Phil for a third season, and then the third season was released on Netflix May 29th, 2020. So the recent episode that you could go ahead and watch now that Netflix has up is October 30th, 2020. So it actually just started back. Only like, it's only been like a week and some change maybe. So you can go ahead and watch that. And like I said, they moved the program from PBS to Netflix. And they changed like the opening theme song. The opening theme song is now by the artist Lake Street Dive. So again, it's a total of 4 seasons. The host is Philip Rosenthal, that's his full name, and it's actually directed by John Bedolis, and it's a documentary and a travel documentary, so it's a little bit longer than your average episodes. So usually when we watch something on the Food Network or sometimes other, depending on like the channel networks and everything like that, nowadays, I mean, you have TV shows, however, that would reach a max of an hour, sometimes a little bit over an hour for each episode, because they have so many content that they have to put into it, but they can't at the same time break it into a movie and sum it all up. It has to break down into a TV show. So the running time for this particular show is 46 to 63 minutes. So it's basically one of those shows that has to be an hour. And so the episodes, they go out. So like the first 2 seasons, it only had like about 6 episodes, and it was both in 2018, and then the third season had only about 5, and then finally this recent episode that you can watch right now had about 5. So it should be pretty easy within 5 hours if you binge watch it to finish up the entire documentary. And places that he's been to Bangkok, he's been to Saigon, he's been to Tel Aviv, Lisbon, New Orleans, Mexico City, Venice, Dublin, Buenos Aires, he's been to Copenhagen, Cape Town, New York City, Marrakesh, Chicago, London, Seoul, Montreal, Rio de Janeiro, San Francisco, Singapore, the Mississippi Delta, and Hawaii. And actually, in this season, he is going from Rio de Janeiro to San Francisco to Singapore to the Mississippi Delta, and then he's leaving it with Hawaii. And he actually said, too, and I quote, that the 4th season and the 3rd season were actually filmed like back to back. So that was pretty interesting because they're completely different cities. So he obviously did a lot of traveling within that time frame in order to meet the requirements and the deadline for like the next season afterwards. I mean, talk about a lot of work, right? So, and the reason my opinion of this show is I feel like it really connects, as I stated before the commercial, interpersonal. Because now we can kind of focus on one person that's kind of doing it by themselves type of thing. It's not like the Best Food Review where he kind of travels with a team all the time and it's pretty much the same people. So now with him, he actually is trying to discover the food on his own, discovering how it's prepared, how it's cooked. If you notice, like with a lot of cultures, they take food very seriously. It's just not about filling up your bellies and maybe, like it all depends on, well, is this food touching this particular food system, or is it the colors that they want to really get out there on the plate? The presentation really matters, especially when you're eating at a fancy restaurant or any restaurant, in my opinion. And just literally just literally knowing kind of like a little bit of a background on that country makes it even more spectacular. So I feel like, again, we need more and more shows like this because it really, really brings people together. And I feel like it really educates you instead of having someone who's like, basically, this is content. This is information, right? So it's literally up to you, the audience, if you want to grasp on that content, if you want to learn something, and if you want to teach yourself about, hey, well, maybe I would like to travel there one day to that city or to that country. So why not try and figure out what are the best places to eat? Because we tend to do that, right? When we travel somewhere, you know, we may not know the area too well. So, of course, the first thing we do is we go on our phones, we Google what is like the best places to eat nearby, or what's the best, and then we look at all the reviews and the comments. Like, I don't know about y'all, but I actually love looking at the comments because that way I kind of get the information. Okay, well, this customer had a bad experience, but this one had a great experience. So is it like 50-50 with this restaurant, or is it more just like don't go there at all? And you can watch TV shows like this, just like Somebody Feed Phil, because Phil wants to be fed, but he probably wants to be fed in a good way. And he doesn't want to go to a bad restaurant, and then that would be really like just shameful too. I mean, I don't know if any of you even watch Gordon Ramsay. I probably should have talked about him today, but okay, enough said. Okay, he gets upset if you prepare the steak the wrong way. Okay, I need someone like that in my life. Shoot. So going further into the show, what's interesting is the host of the show, he obviously is into film and he's into producing. So it was pretty easy for him to kind of connect with someone, the director of his particular traveling food show, to put something up together so that way he can host of where he travels to go and eat. Everyone loves to eat. And what's also interesting is Rosenthal is also the creator of Everybody Loves Raymond. So if you ever loved the Everybody Loves Raymond TV show, well, then you might like the person that was behind it all. So you can go ahead and watch him. But there's actually some problems that I was also hearing about this TV show. And this was actually sent out back in like 2018. Because a lot of times, especially with Netflix, there's like too much of the same thing, in my opinion. So, and not just on Netflix. I mean, just even with the Food Network. Because it's like nowadays, everyone's coming out with this show where they want to travel and then talk about the foods that they eat or talk about the places they've been to. There's so many different things that you could do with that once you have a travel blog or a travel vlog. And that's vlog with a V. So the first thing that, again, this was back in 2018, and I'm getting this information from theeater.com, and it was 5 problems wrong with this show. So Somebody Feed Phil is too cute by half. So the first thing is that they talk about it's unclear why Rosenthal is hosting this show in the first place. I mean, just going off of that statement, he probably just wanted to try something new. There's nothing wrong with that. But, of course, people are probably just not used to seeing him in front of the camera, especially for so many years when you've been always behind the camera. And then his observations are non-observations. So what they're saying here is, if you notice how with Guy Fieri or even with Sunny in the best food reviews, in my opinion, I feel like out of all 4, the best food reviews is the best because, like I said, I love learning about other cultures, and I feel like it's very important that other people do too, to be open-minded and not judge another culture on what they eat or how they prepare their food or what exactly would you call sanitary or unsanitary. That is just how they do things, and I feel like people need to respect that more, especially when it comes to food. Food is very important. Again, it's sustenance. But what they're saying here is about Rosenthal is the fact that he probably would talk about a food, or when he's observing something like behind the scenes, like how the chefs are preparing it, it's probably just like an obvious statement like, oh my gosh, like, yes, we know the peppers are yellow. But if you look at Guy Fieri's show, if you look at the Best Food Review show, they go in detail and they make sure they do their research. Remember that discussion we had earlier? They do their research about certain areas where they have to be when it comes to getting food off the street or whatever part of the country that's in, like what's dangerous and what's safe. But at the same time, it's like he has this kind of respect. And he's not selfish when it comes to learning about these cultures at the same time. So they're basically saying that Rosenthal basically does not have that. Maybe he would eventually grow into in time, because he has been doing this for like a couple years now. So because it's 2018 to 2020 now. But you have to have that spark where you can kind of keep entertaining the people when you're talking about food, that passion. Because anybody could talk about food. I could sit here and talk about all different types of food. But to see me actually standing there with the food and describing it and the texture and the seasoning and all these different things, and as to why, first of all, the question is as to why they prepare it that way, how they prepare it that way. There's so religious reason. There's so many different things. Or is this something only the woman could do, or only the men could do better? Like, different cultures have these conversations. And so the next point is the theme song is annoying. I love that one. That's interesting. They said it's a dopey ditty from the band Lake Street Drive. Sounds like it should accompany shots of a family getting ready for school and work at the start of a mid-90s TGIF sitcom. It's nice that Netflix gives you the option to skip ahead and start 20 seconds after the opening credits. Ooh, sorry. The next point is Phil's jokes land with a thud. And this is what they had to say about that. The least you might expect from someone who created one of TV's most durable sitcoms, that's true, is a few snappy one-liners, but somehow Rosenthal is also falls short in his department. There are some real groaners sprinkled throughout the show, but most of the comedic beats are just Phil mugging for the camera. Wow. So, see, not everybody could be in front of the camera, not everybody could be behind the camera. Everybody has their talents. The next point, and the final point, is this show has no discernible point of view. That's interesting. That actually ties back into the point where his observations are non-observations. And so they're saying that basically the message, it seems, is that if you're an affable, open-minded Hollywood guy who travels the world, people will love you wherever you go. By far, the best moments of the show are when Phil is talking with chefs like New Orleans legend Leah Chase and Ho Chi Minh, city star Nicole Tran, who have lived interesting lives and are important members of their communities. And yet the story always veers back to Phil's most pleasant journey. I wanted the camera to linger longer on the chefs doing their things in the kitchen, and for Phil and his crew to dig deeper into each location, see what food means to the people who live and work there. See what I mean? That's literally what I just said. So there is a huge difference when you're visiting another country, visiting another state, that it should be about the community. That's the whole point of traveling. So I just feel like maybe eventually he might grow into that. But it's honestly, this is one of like least of my favorite shows. But like I said, it's a documentary. So if you prefer a documentary point of view, but at the same time, it's one of those documentaries that are kind of focusing on the host and like where he goes. So, I mean, you just probably have to be a really huge fan of him, and you probably just have to, again, still be open-minded just to see at least where it takes you and like where he's going and where is he traveling, because maybe there's certain spots that he goes to that maybe Guy Fieri and, you know, the best food reviews probably never ended up yet. So, and on those shows, Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives, and then Best Food Reviews, and then Food Paradise. But Food Paradise, I feel like it's one of the best ones to definitely watch. And then it would be Best Food Reviews. Because Food Paradise, again, like we were talking about, it goes into a narration type of deal. And I think I would prefer seeing the types of food and how it's made and everything like that, and have someone narrating, because narrating sometimes can keep the audience even interested as well. And then, of course, Bad Food Reviews, honestly, that's the best one to watch if you want to, like, watch everywhere he goes internationally and follow everywhere he goes. So, but again, this has been an amazing night. So, happy Thursday. Hope you all enjoy the rest of your week. Stay tuned for another episode coming out next week, Monday. So, thank you for listening to the GSMC Television Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I would like to ask that you please remember to subscribe to the show and write a nice review. That really helps us. Also, if you can please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thank you, and have a good night.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Television Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.